So at this point, we are done running cork, and we want to switch over to screw cap method. So the first thing that I need to do is these heater heads are very hot because they've been running, say they've been running for a few hours at temperature. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to switch to a program that we have entered for screw cap. So that's turning off our heater heads. So I'm going to give those some time to just chill out and lower their temperature. But in the meantime, I can remove my star wheels. Since we're running a screw cap product, we don't have to do anything with any foil or any capsules, which also means I'm going to be skipping this whole section. So I'm actually going to be removing both my entry and my exit, as well as my gate. These can go back into storage. And I'll be replacing them with this shield. So this shield just sits right in here. And all that is just extra protection, so when a bottle comes through, it can't fall off the track. Other than that, we can remove the heater heads and store them, or we can leave them in place. If we do leave them in place, all we want to do is come back to our main screen. We can go to our toolbar and go to the section that operates the heater heads, and I'm just going to raise them up so they're out of the way and I don't have bottles running into anything. So now that I know that they're plenty high enough, I have no reason to remove them. But if I were to need to remove them or swap them out, I could do this at this point. The last thing I would do, I would also turn off my air supply. At that point, I could start fully disassembling this, which is pretty straightforward. So up top, Unit 1 and Unit 2 are connected through these Quick Connect air lines. So it has just this plastic ring that gets pushed in, and then the hose simply pulls out. Once that's removed, this is the power supply to the heater heads. Just unlock it and unplug it. So now that whole unit is completely disassembled. All I would have to do is remove these two nuts, and I could lift the entire unit out. But I'm going to wait until these fully cool down so I don't burn myself.
Just like this side getting moved over for screw cap here. I'm going to switch everything over on this side over for screw cap. One thing you want to do, you want to do this every time you're done corking bottles, is there are what we call corker jaws inside of here. You want to get those cleaned out. Try and get this off.
So this just
slide
back.
That down.
And that pushes up. So this brings out the first half of the jaws. Is it on manual? So once you have the first half of the jaws out, is it on manual or auto? You want to make sure the machine is in manual mode. So what you're doing is running the unit manual just so briefly until you can reach this little bent tool. Is designed to fit inside the jaws there. Until you just tap it on manual until it releases, and you can slide it out. And this whole unit will slide out. So we typically store these when they're not in use, just because even when we're running screw cap mode, these jaws are still constantly moving, so they're all working off the same gears. So if we remove them, it's just less wear and tear on them. So when we're running screw cap, we just pull those out and store them. So we're also whenever we're removing them, we're checking them for damage. These are a very fine edge on these, and we just want to make sure there's no nicks or scratch marks that could damage cork as they're going in the bottle.
They used to go in that small gray box, so I just put them in the drawer. So before I do anything with the upper cap, I'm going to start here on the control module and below. So we're getting ready to swap over for screw cap. So I'm going to toggle over to screw. So that's done. Remember, there's four things that need changed. Now we're going to come to the screen. Set. I'm going to change this item from cork to screw. Screw 1, screw 2, it doesn't matter. It just needs to be on the screw setting. So now we're all set there. And then number 3 down below, this collar is in the cork position right now. And you need to switch it to the right for screw cap. So we are left, we go right. Now 3 of the 4 steps are done. So we don't forget those, and now we're going to come and switch the top half of the unit. And there are 4 bolts, 2 in the front and 2 in the back that we're going to loosen up. As simple as an Allen wrench. With a half turn, usually gets you where you need to be. And if you can see back there, there's this black retractable pin. Pull that out. And at this point, you can go ahead and clockwise push the entire machine, the entire head, to our screw cap position. This whole push pin here, I'll usually apply pressure to it and kind of turn this until it locks into place like so. Once it doesn't wiggle anymore, you know you're locked in. And then we'll go ahead and fasten down our bolts underneath, all 4 of them again. You don't need to reef down on them, just as simple as a quick hand torque turn. And the last one, the hardest one to reach. And you can also remove the vacuum reservoir for the corker at this point as well. Just one more item that's able to get lifted out of the way here. And we can just set that right down and set it. So we are all set. We need all 4 steps to switching it over for screw cap. We're all done. The next thing you want to do is for the screw cap, the Zalkin, is go ahead and make sure everything's calibrated as far as tension. This requires a little bit of extra maintenance, just in that if you're running enough bottles through here, thousands of bottles, the tension on these arms here can weaken or they can seize up. So you want to double check those, you know, whether it's during the day of bottling, you know, during a lunch break or something, you can come back and it wouldn't hurt to check them again, check the tension. Or worst case, after the bottling's over, before your next one, just to make sure you're ready to go. And always, again, before you start bottling for the day if you're doing screw cap. These rollers here, you'll notice there's one on this side, there's 4 of them. There's one here, and there's one here. We call those our thread rollers. And these 2 lower ones, one on this side, one on the other side, are our skirt rollers. Just a simple hanging scale that we've attached a zip tie to with a hook. And there's, you want to check, basically you're going to put the zip tie around. You can see there's 2 lower blades not blades, but arms and 2 arms that are raised up. And those will stay in those positions. So what you want to do is do both of your high ones first. It's as simple as putting the zip tire on the very bottom. Turning your scale on. Put your hook on. And you put your thumb on this tab here and pull back on the scale until you feel that tab start to slip away from your finger just a little bit. And so the upper arms you want at roughly, and the bottoms, the lower arms, you want to read. Same concept, just around the very base of the arm there. Thumb on the tab. The higher arm should be 9, the bottoms are 11. Right around 11. And that's how you test the tension on that. And you'll want to make sure you adjust those and make sure they're at the numbers they're supposed to be before you actually run a screw cap through. In order to adjust these and adjust the tension, it's going to be, you're going to loosen up this nut and twist that bolt there. So obviously, if you want to loosen it up, you pull it away and pull it out. If you want it to tighten up, you turn it. So if you tighten this up, there's going to be less tension on this roller here. So you're essentially going to be taking the arm. If you tighten it, it's going to do this to the arm. If you loosen it, it's going to do this to the arm. If you tighten this down, it's going to lessen the tension that you have actually on the capsule. If you loosen it, it's going to straighten that blade out and put more tension. So again, you'll just want to make sure that those numbers are where they need to be before you actually run a screw cap through there. Otherwise, it'll shred the cap or not seal it tight enough. So once you're good here, once you've checked everything, all the tension's all good to go, you're going to want to do all of your change parts. So this bottle here, we're sitting at an 84 size change part right now. We want to drop it down because of the size of this bottle. We're going to drop it down to roughly a 77 change part because it is a W65 style bottle. And given that is probably the most common bottle we've run through this trailer, 77 number change parts are what we're going to go with. Start loosening everything up. Just do a 1-for-1 swap. So our 84. And this is our 77. Just go ahead and drop that right in there. So we'll loosen these. Take this one out. So this is our 84. And we'll go 79, just because the W65 bottles tend to have a little bit of variance in the diameter. You'll have the majority will run through and fit that 77, but you'll get the occasional one that's just a micron larger and just too tight. So we run a 79 guide. One size up isn't gonna change your alignment by enough to really cause any issues. Get that in there. So now all the change parts underneath the closure side are done. So now we'll change our guide and our 2-star wheels here. So we'll pull these out. These both as well were 84s. Change them out for our 77s. Last one we need to do is our guide. And we went 77 on the wheels and 79 on the guide, the same as we did here. 77 on the wheel and 79 on the guide. And again, we just do that just because we want to make sure that we're not going to have any issues with the bottles getting stuck. And the W65s, tend to run every so often. A bottle is a little bit thicker than another. And it's not enough to throw the alignment off and cause any problems. All your change parts are good. And we always, typically within a range, unless we start getting into champagne bottles or bubbly bottles, usually keep this wheel the same. This fits just about every size up to the real large diameter bottles like your Brut Rosés and things like that. So now that that's all set up, make sure we're able to feed our capsules. So for the corker, we use this corker hopper. Basically just dump your corks in there and everything is fed straight down to that head, to that machine. This machine, the capsules are fed from this hopper. So this is 2 extra parts we add on here. This one attaches, this male end goes into this female end here. It's as simple as just dropping it right in. And it'll stay on its own. And then we'll take our guide, and we'll drop it into the top of the arm that we just put on. Right, just like so. And this will seat right in there. So they aren't just free floating around the trailer. They're not as commonly used as the cork side of this. We'll keep them in our storage cabinet here with the rest of our tools, just so they're in a secured spot and aren't banging around getting chips and damaged. So the capsules will feed down through here. So both of these are able to be wiggled and adjusted and moved around until you get to your desired spot where it'll feed appropriately. At that point, you can fasten these down, kind of lock them in place via the lever just to the outside when we dropped it in. Again, hand snug, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Usually tighten that one first so that's in place. And then this one can still kind of be pushed and prodded around a little bit just to get the exact location right. Alright, so this is our solenoid for our nitrogen sparger. This is what will kind of trigger this to sparge, basically. And this one belongs to the corker that we just got done using. So I'm going to swap this over for this one for our screw cap. In order to do that, I need to remove this. All this is just a gasket, just to provide extra seal. You don't have to have it on there, but... And it is threaded down in there, obviously. It doesn't have to be obnoxiously tight. Take a wrench and just give it an extra couple turns. All we do now, just a push fitting. Just push it in there. That's good to go. And this one you can just kind of drop out of the way. So the setup configuration for the corkscrew on this end is done, minus the power plug. And all you'll have to do, I will actually skate around the other side, but there's the plug with the gray head in the corner there. All we do is swap that out with this one here. So we'll remove the one in the corner, and we'll put this one in, and we're good. So we'll remove this one out of here. This belongs to the corker. So just kind of drape that over the corking machine here. And I will grab this other one. It belongs to the screw capper. Same head, same fitting. And we're all set. So now that we're all set up, we've all our guides and rails, heads, and all of our change parts all set up for our W65 bottle. These are threaded, so they're designed for screw caps. So we want to find our supply of screw caps, which are going to get emptied into this hopper here. And down here is our control module that controls this. And this operates by, obviously, frequency, which vibrates the hopper. And there is compressed air that does help and aid to push the capsules up. You can see there's capsules sitting in the bottom of the hopper now. Kind of looks like a threaded interior. That's really just the guide for the capsules to work their way up to their exit point for this rail around the end there. So I'll go ahead and switch that on, which is right here. And operating frequency that we operate under is right about 49. So basically, as long as this arrow is straight up, vertical, that's normal. And our operating amperage, typically between 60 and 70. And you can fiddle with it, fine tune it, adjust it, speed it up, slow it down. So I will get some capsules. Well, we've got some in there, so let's just roll with those. I'll show you how this works. And this is our air, so we'll make sure your air's on as well. So there is air. There's an exit port inside. I believe it's on this side of the hopper, down inside, about halfway up. And what that does is as the screw caps come by, it will actually push the screw cap into the upright position that it needs to be in. So when it hits this guide, it lays down on its side the right way, so everything feeds properly. So I'll kind of get this going so you can see what it looks like as they spin. Just holding my finger up here because it needs a little bit more adjustment. So I'm just kind of backlogging them so they don't fall through this crack. And I'm going to turn it down since we're just kind of testing these out. We don't need a whole bunch in here. Shut the frequency and amps off, and we can shut our air off. Now we're ready. One thing I did forget to do with this bottle, because it is generally the same height, we still need to check it. So I'll remove this wheel again before we actually test a cap. And we're close. It's about knuckle or finger depth. Just want to be ballpark, so it's close. Again, you can make micro adjustments as you go. So we'll call that good. We'll move down here to the screw capper itself. And this one takes a little bit more fiddling around with. There's no real, you can't do a finger depth or knuckle depth on this. You want to try and get the bottom of this elbow here, this tube, as close without touching as you can. And again, that's made by doing the adjustment here. Roughly 5 millimeters. And again, the threads on the screw cap are too deep, too light. It's not seated properly. You can lower it and raise it up and just make your adjustments. Screw caps typically take a few more test bottles than the corkscrew. So we'll go ahead and we'll run a test cap on there. So we'll switch it from auto to manual. And those controls are right here. You don't want it to look like that, and that typically you'll get some scarring if you have it in manual mode. So we'll go ahead and run another bottle. We'll slice this one off. Yeah. Switch it back to auto. That's better. Alright, so notice no scarring. But the groove, the bottom groove, is kind of running through the threads there. Let's see here. You don't want that. It needs to be up about 2 more millimeters, so we can either raise the machine, just down here. You don't need to raise it much, or you can make adjustments to the Zalkin itself. But a lot of times, if you do that, it's pretty time consuming, and you can end up messing around with it for a while. So typically, we'll try raising the machine first to see if that fixes anything. So we'll go ahead and run it again. That's what you want it to look like. You see the end of the thread is just above the vertical threads. That's where you want it to be. So now we're good. So now what we need to do is torque test it. And all of that is doing is making sure that the capsule is seated on here properly, because there's nothing else inside here other than this screw cap sealing this bottle shop. We'll bring it over here to our torque tester. What you do, once it's on, clear it to 0 by hitting this button here. And place the bottle in between these 4 fingers or arms. Use the screw on the side to tighten it. Once you're tight, it's going to read torque on here. We'll just 0 it out again. Okay, and then all you do is grab the top of the screw cap and spin it until it clicks. Once it clicks, you can let go. And it's going to tell you what your torque is. I believe as long as it's under 14, you're good to go. It means you have proper seating of the capsule and it's sealed tight enough. So our closure for our screw cap on our bottle is good to go. You're ready to run the bottle.